First game I want to talk about, man, let's talk about the Rams and the Bears. I certainly didn't foresee a defensive struggle in that game. I thought that would be a bit of a shootout, but still there's a lot to unpack in that game. Caleb Williams made one of the most spectacular football plays that I have ever seen.
My God.
From 26 yards behind the line of scrimmage, drifting backwards, he hit Cole Kmet in the back of the end zone on fourth down to keep the season alive. And then in overtime, he threw what would end up being the game-sealing interception, and from the pocket with zero pressure in his face, and that was so very Caleb Williams in a nutshell. Spectacular on the move, in my opinion. Spectacular when he's improvising, but there's still a lot to learn from him. In my observation, from the pocket. Yep. In the straight drop back situations where he's just scanning the field and he needs to make the right decision. With about 9 minutes of game action, that just tells you everything you need to know about him. But let me ask you the first question about the Bears. Are they the new class of the NFC North, or are they coming back to earth next season? Are they Mahomes and Andy Reid, or are they Burrow and Zach Taylor?
Oh,
what say the people's champ?
Nah, before you answer that, I want to give you their schedule for next year. Outside of the divisional games.
It's a first place schedule, but go ahead.
Outside of the divisional games, at home, they got Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, Jacksonville, the Jets, the Patriots, and the Saints. On the road, they have the Bills, the Dolphins, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Seahawks.
Yep, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult. They play in 13 one-score games this year. They went 8-5. So, history tells us that those one-score games tend to go the other way, particularly when you're playing a tougher schedule. So what do you see for this upcoming season? And then what do you portend for the future, just going forward in general for that coach quarterback combination?
Well, the immediate future, I think they're in good shape just for the simple fact that there's a lot of uncertainty in the NFC North currently, right now, as of today. I think Minnesota has some offensive issues that they need to address.
I agree.
I think they may have not found their answer at quarterback.
Right.
And if they believe they have, he needs to get a lot better.
Sure.
And then there's Green Bay. They did re-up on.
I saw that. Matt
LaFleur.
Yep, I saw that.
So the brain, the front office brain trust has confidence in him. So you would assume that they're going to come back reloaded. They're always going to bring the talent's always going to be there.
Yep, I agree.
They're
a very well-run organization.
So it's just a matter, I think, of LaFleur being able to make those adjustments in those pressure situations in high-stake games.
Yep.
Then you have the Lions, which I'm sure we'll probably get to later at a later topic.
We absolutely will.
I mean, we can pick a side of the ball where, we have questions that need to be answered.
Absolutely.
So I think short term, they're fine. Long term, I don't know if I want to say that they're what was the
Mahomes and Andy Reid?
I don't know if they're Mahomes
Taylor
and Andy Reid, just for the simple fact that as a passer, Patrick Mahomes was just so much more advanced than Caleb Williams in terms of stepping back and being able to literally dictate a defense with his arm.
I tend to agree. Yes.
And I think with Ben Johnson, eventually he's going to want a quarterback that can put the ball exactly where he wants it to go on demand. And Caleb, for outstanding of the plays that he makes, he hasn't shown the ability to consistently be able to just drop back, plant that back foot, and put the ball where it needs to be on the 5, 7, and 9s and things of the sort.
Yep.
So, and also you factor in the NFL, no league adjusts, especially defensively, like the NFL does.
Yeah, I wrote the same thing. So, that's exactly what I said. I'm like, once the film gets around, so they figure out exactly what to do.
So, that said, I think long term, I'm not going to say Reid, Mahomes, but short term, I think they'll definitely be in the mix.
So I kind of, while I agree with that, a lot of what you said. I actually think in the short term, regression to the mean is inevitable. Because again, nephew just kind of pointed out they'll be playing the first place schedule. And NFL teams understand what quarterbacks can and cannot do. And they get better at taking that away. You know, like NFL teams got good at keeping Lamar Jackson in the pocket. So they'll get good at keeping Caleb Williams in the pocket too. You know what I'm saying? Like they always find it. And that's why Lamar turned into a really good passer. You know, like they had to design the read option offense. And I think, you know, perhaps Ben Johnson will adjust and design something like that for Caleb as well.
Yeah.
Because that's eventually what guys like that have to end up doing who are really good outside the pocket. They have to get that read option. They have to hold those linebackers and find those throws in that intermediate area. With less coverage back there, it's easier for them to read. But you know, you tend to see that regression to the mean, you know, like with CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, because people tend to start, once the film gets around, they see exactly what you do. They see how you like to do it. And then they start taking stuff away. Of course, you know, Jaden Daniels, he had a lot of injuries, but even when he was on the field, he wasn't quite as spectacular as he was his rookie year.
For
sure. And by the way, I think all of the second year quarterbacks that are having all of this success, I think that there will be some regression to the mean for all of them. Drake May, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that all of they're having a lot of success now. But I think that NFL defenses, like you said, you put it perfect. They adjust extremely well. They figure out these quarterbacks very well. They figure out what makes you uncomfortable, and they start doing that a whole heck of a lot. And but with that being said, I believe in Ben Johnson. And I think that what Caleb struggles with, I think those are the things that you can teach a quarterback. I don't know how quickly he'll learn them. So I think they will regress to the mean. I don't expect them to win 12 games next year. I don't expect them to win the NFC North next year, because it will get more difficult. You know, again, experience tells us that those one-score games start to go the other way, particularly when the schedule gets more difficult. So I expect that they will, you know, they'll still be in the mix. They'll be a tough team. I like the way that their roster is put together. I like that they went out and spent money in free agency. And we'll talk about that later, because I did make an observation that told me exactly why the Lions are not playing in the tournament. And I'll get to that observation later. But I you know, there's a lot to like about the Chicago Bears, and I do think that ultimately the future is bright beyond next year. But next year, I think there'll be some regression to the mean. Beyond that, there'll be some development. Go ahead, nephew.
I know it's a foolish error to predict wins at this point of the year, because we haven't even got to the offseason yet.
Yeah, the draft and all of that.
But looking at the schedule, and from my opinion, over under 9 wins next year for them.
Oh, wow.
A push. I think they'll win 9. That's my prediction. But you know, but like you said, it's hard. That's difficult, because you know that we haven't seen the draft, we haven't seen the offseason, we haven't seen how the other teams will shake out. We haven't seen how the other teams in the division will improve, who's gonna make a big splash. You know, hopefully the Lions get real busy in this offseason. And again, we're gonna get around to having a discussion about them. But I expect them to win around 9 games.
And I'm not saying because I'm looking at the schedule, I don't see them going 0-6 in the division. And I feel like there's 5 easy wins there. And then there's a couple 50-50. So I feel like 9 wins is like that barometer of where they could be or where they possibly might fall at the end of the year.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. But let's talk about the 49ers at the Seahawks, because this is, and by the way, we both went 3-1 over the weekend.
Yeah.
The only one that we missed was the Texans and the Patriots. But let's talk about the 49ers at the Seahawks, because there ain't a lot to talk about.
This ought to be quick.
There's very little to discuss here. Seahawks annihilated the 49ers 41-6 from the opening kickoff, where Shaheed he took it back with 98 yards on the opening kickoff. It was really, that was all the points they needed. Once they kicked the extra point, that 7 points would have done it. Sam Darnold only had 124 yards passing and a touchdown. He didn't really need to do much. 49ers really couldn't sustain anything. When you look at the raw statistics, time of possession was about the same. The yardage was about the same. The Seahawks defense is just so sound. K9 did have 19 rushes for 116 yards. Seahawks have won 7 games in a row now. Last time they lost was November 23rd, so before Thanksgiving. Even with the Charbonnet injury, man, is the Seahawks, are they the best team remaining? What say the people's champ, man?
Man, it's hard to argue against it.
Yep.
It is really hard to argue against it. If they can continue offensively to just kind of, just keep Darnold clean, and, he can just kind of turn around and hand the ball off. Like you say, Charbonnet's down, but you still got K9.
Yeah.
And, you still got JSN on the outside.
Yep.
And then, that defense. I didn't know the Legion of Boom 2.0 is back like this. This, you just kind of go back and look at some of their defensive statistics, and it's like, shoot. And then when you see it live, and they're reminiscent of the Boom, because they're big, athletic,
yep,
and quick. They got a lot of guys, that look more like power forwards more so than defensive end. You know what I mean? Than edge rushers. And yeah, I would have to say, out of the remaining teams left, if you're talking, all sides, both sides of the ball and all phases of the game, yeah.
So for me, they're definitely the best defense left, right? Certainly that. With all due respect to Denver and New England.
And you look at their special teams too.
Yeah, but a lot of these games they're winning in spite of Sam Darnold.
Yeah, for sure. So he hasn't been asked to do much of anything.
A little concerning, because so history tells us again that quarterback play is going to be needed in some of these high leverage situations.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like we've seen, Trent Dilfer and Brad Johnson win Super Bowls, and but that was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Most of the time you need a great quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
Nick Foles would like a word.
Again, it does happen occasionally.
Well, you look at his numbers. Nick Foles looking like Joe Montana.
He cooked in that Super Bowl. But yeah, so you gonna need. But he gave him great quarterback play.
Yeah,
though.
for sure.
So like history tells us that at some point you're gonna need the quarterback to play great. You're gonna need more than 124 yards at some point.
I agree.
But I think Sam Darnold deserves more respect than that. I had to check today. He's been in the league for 8 years. The last 4 years, including the playoffs, he is actually 33-10.
Yeah, but
and I understand what you're saying about like his perceived skill level, but at this 33-10, and it's not. I know the last 2 years he's had Justin Jefferson and he had JSN, but it's not like in Carolina he had a wealth of options and he still went 4-2 that first year in Carolina.
Yeah, but we talking high leverage situations though. What I'm saying, like he has not performed in these high leverage situations. That is his track record. And I understand, yes, the regular season stuff, he's been good, and he's had.
That's including the playoffs too. He's only played them 2 playoff games.
Yeah, 2. That's what I'm saying. The 2 play and last year in the playoffs he was not good. Nor was he good in the last game of the season, which was basically like a playoff game, which was here at the Lions, where he was bad. So and again, like I'm not trying to rag on Sam Darnold. I'm just saying that at some point they're going to need some high leverage quarterback play from him. I'm not telling you that he can't give it to you, but I'm just saying that, his track record for high leverage playoff performing is sparse. It doesn't mean that he's not capable. So, like, I'm not here to rag on him, but it's just, he's going to have to demonstrate that. And he's going against a guy who is proven, more proven in those playoff situations this coming Sunday. So, and we'll get back to that conversation when we talk about our predictions. But